Speaking of that purpose, and I want to kind of transition to Skye and more specifically the metabolic space.
Yeah.
I love asking this question of my guests who have worked in the VC space and perhaps who were in the VC space when they, planted a stake, stuck their flag in the ground and said, "Yep, I'm gonna really get behind this one," right? Like, why this one? You have exposure when you're in
Mhm.
that role. You have exposure. You have two giant advantages. One being your experience in the space, in the drug development space, working for drug development companies, and then when you're in a VC capacity, um, you have exposure to all sorts of programs, indications, modalities, opportunities. Uh, what was it that I guess incited you to say, yeah, you know what? This metabolic space and Skye, this is the one that I'm gonna jump behind the wheel of this one.
Yeah, I mean this was a pandemic kind of decision. I was working for another pharma company here in San Diego. It was a private company and kind of managing all of this Asia geography. This was a unique opportunity because I was fueled by a buy side opportunity. That's how I got involved in this company. I was a board member and an investor. So
Mhm.
I already kind of had a stake in it, and a responsibility from a fiduciary perspective.
Mhm.
And then really started putting kind of pen to paper on how do we build a fundamental company off of this broad area of science. So the company was historically focused on the endocannabinoid system, and we're like, okay, that is fascinating. It's great, but if we want to really scale that, then we're going to have to focus on an area where we can attract capital and leverage any opportunities to de-risk. Incidentally, I was already exposed to kind of other things that were happening in the space. I was following uh, uh, CB1 inhibition space even before I joined formally as CEO of this company in 2020. And I did have this kind of vision of focusing on CB1 as a target. So initially it was around CB1 agonism and glaucoma, where there was validation of agonism of CB1 helping lower intraocular pressure. And then CB1 inhibition was attractive in terms of broadly in a range of different diseases, including the metabolic health space. But let's fast forward. Right now, in the last year, it's really evolved into this really compelling opportunity to innovate in this metabolic health space, and that's really where we are today. I think we can still say that we have a lot of experience with targeting the endocannabinoid system as a company, but specifically in CB1 inhibition, I think it's aligned perfectly with my experience and vision for creating, a company and potentially breakthrough treatments that can address critical health challenges. I finally feel personally in purpose where I get to work on a therapeutic area where I can relate to this, on a really rapidly moving scale. And we've been, I think, uh, pretty successful in the last year of where we've come from, of acquiring a company, building on the financial strength of the company, advancing a clinical pipeline, and now just launching a phase 2 study.
Mhm. Let's crack into that. What you just mentioned a minute ago. Let's kind of dig into that relatability aspect. Why? Why do you feel as though like this is something that was relating to you on a level, beyond, well, there's a good business opportunity.
I think it's like from a health care perspective. So, like, being in the pharmaceutical industry, it's so hard to um, uh, kind of always make a kind of direct relationship in terms of what we're trying to advance in terms of pharmacotherapy. Not everyone can relate to an ultra rare disease. Not everyone can relate to a chronic condition. But I think metabolic health becomes a really fundamental pillar of overall well-being. And you can I think now, recognize with so much literature that's out there and the prevalence of the discussion around metabolic disorders and specifically obesity, it does represent a very pressing public health challenge in our time,
Hmm.
because there's just, I guess, a more common knowledge and relatability around it. So beyond the market opportunity, I think it's a fascinating area. It's because of the complexity of it and obesity. The more we dig into it, we also see this additional causal relationship that it's linked to many other diseases and comorbidities. So I really see this as a space where there's a lot of innovative science that can make a profound impact. It has the ability to address, all the unmet kind of components that come along with pharmacotherapy, but by addressing on the root cause of metabolic dysfunction with this novel approach that we're taking with CB1 inhibition, we have the potential to not only treat but also prevent a wide range of chronic diseases. And I think that, by focusing on metabolic diseases, you get to have this link to improving quality of life. So that's a tough one in healthcare. Quality of life is a very tough definition,
Yeah.
but you can do it on a global scale by this macro area of metabolic disease. So I'm really excited for what that pipeline can enable. And working at Skye, I really do feel in purpose on making a radical difference with pharmacotherapy, because although I'm not, knock on wood, I don't have a direct kind of link to a chronic therapeutic condition personally. I think health and wellness is something I really care about. So
Hmm.
being able to apply pharmacotherapy to make that difference, I can just see that link. And I was just being an avid health nut and athlete most of my life. Like I feel like this is kind of my calling in terms of an opportunity to really help lead a company that's focused on that. And I can see the rest from my management team too. I mean, we joke. I think our management team has the most uh, you know uh, anyways, yeah, yeah.
The best the you cut mean figures across the skyline across the
Yeah.
landscape of the biotech industry,
I
right?
would say I'd say we
Lean
would
and
we
mean.
would have a pretty strong deadlift score combined as a management team.
I like it. Well, I always say you don't get, I mean, I should talk. I was just talking about the fact that it's tough to get a haircut as thin as my hair is getting. But I always say you don't get a haircut from somebody with a bad haircut, right? So it only makes sense that you have
Yeah.
a healthy and good looking management team in the space you're in. But this space you're in, like, I'm going to dumb this down, like to probably what's a terrible analogy. And if it is a terrible analogy, I want you to call me out on it. But
Mhm.
like, let's say like let's say I don't, but let's say I have a passion for ridding the world of household vermin like mice, right? And I think I want to apply that to a business. Again, just bear with the terrible analogy.
Yeah, no,
I want to
I
apply
see
it
where
to
you're
a
going
business.
with this. Yes.
So I go, okay, I'm gonna do, the old cliche. I'm gonna build a better mousetrap,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be like, you know what, Victor, Victor, the company that has been making mousetraps probably since the
Yes.
1700s,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you know what, Victor, I got a better way. I've got a different way, and I think it's a better way. I'm gonna fly in the face of Victor, and I'm gonna tackle this rodent, this rodent epidemic. In a way, the analogy fits because I'm looking at you guys and I'm going like,
Yeah.
you're in this context, in this time and place. GLP-1s are just lighting the world on fire, and your approach is contrarian's probably not the right word, but it's a bit against that grain. So rationalize that for me, Punit.
I could totally relate to that. I mean, personally, as an entrepreneur, I've invested in gyms, cycling studios. Like I've owned, like these different enterprises in my career, and I don't think we're going to make as much like those would never make as much impact as what pharmacotherapy can offer in metabolic diseases, right? So that's where I see this opportunity. And I guess you can say, yeah, Skye is taking a contrarian approach by focusing on peripheral CB1 inhibition because it's really a novel mechanism for treating obesity. So just to put that in context, right? GLP-1 agonists, which is where you see most of the headlines because of Ozempic, Zepbound, or Mounjaro. These are all GLP-1 or GLP-1 derivatives, right? And they've shown efficacy. They've also come with a significant side effects and limitations. We believe that targeting CB1 or targeting CB1 receptor in the peripheral tissue offers a safer and more effective way to really modulate the metabolic process without some of the central nervous system side effects that this class has historically had a challenge with, so that we can get into that. So ultimately the approach allows us to really differentiate a therapy in a crowded market and address unmet needs in a way that GLP-1 agonists don't do very well.
So open up a little bit on that, crowded market aspect. I'm not going to keep banging on this mousetrap analogy, but now there are mousetraps that they solve a problem. The mouse goes in it and it's completely enclosed and locked in, and you don't have a decaying mouse in your cupboard, right? So but maybe it still doesn't sell as well as the 87-cent, classic Victor mousetrap. In order to get that new approach, and in your case, to get this new approach out there and develop it, you've got to make some noise of your own in a space as very noisy as it is. So tell me a little bit about that. What have you done? As I said from the outset, I mean, you've got some stout backing in companies like 5AM Ventures. What have you done to create some appeal where it's real easy to jump on the super popular ship, right?
Yeah. And this wasn't a focus on jumping on a super popular ship. And in fact, when we originally
and let me just clarify that. I don't mean like you're jumping on the metabolic or obesity spaceship. I'm saying it would be easy for investors, for the bulk of the investment community and big pharma to go, you know what? We're all in on GLP-1s. They're lighting the world on fire. Why would we give a look at a CB1 inhibition program when all the momentum's going in a different direction? So what are you doing to create that momentum?
Yeah, I think so. The bias has really been on this incretin-based approach, so this GLP-1 approach that we were talking about, and that's really been driven based on a caloric restriction without all the necessary additional metabolic gain. So it's basically, if you think about fat loss, it's really a relationship of food intake and relative to energy expenditure. So if you reduce the caloric intake, then you should have fat loss, and that's at the very basic level. That's what the incretin approaches have been focused on. We are focused on more of the opportunity for healthier, sustainable weight loss. So the regulation of body weight, if it's involving this food intake and energy expenditure, then pharmacotherapy and lifestyle approaches have really tried to manipulate this balance and promote weight loss through like we talked about, caloric restriction, these other types of mechanisms, and specifically these incretin hormones are really driving that. And what we believe is, a coordinated approach, right? A neuroendocrine approach, a multi-organ response to weight loss really helps to mobilize all the mechanisms involved in fat and triggering mechanisms to really prevent further weight gain is opportunity. So if you keep it kind of at a simple level, the CB1 receptor, it's expressed on many different organs, and many organs are critical for this broad kind of neuroendocrine response. And it suggests that CB1 plays a significant role in coordinating that energy balance and fat storage. And we believe that part of the endocannabinoid system, it plays a critical role in this metabolic component. It contributes to obesity by promoting this inappropriate hormone expression and increase in fat and storage and chronic inflammation. And targeting it peripherally, targeting through CB1 inhibition, we're really able to drive these other things like reducing appetite through different these pathways. We're able to drive like the conversion of fat metabolism into energy. We're able to target liver and muscle and offering these other metabolic benefits without some of the other side effects that have been associated with the central side effects that previous CB1 inhibition has been. So it's a different approach than what the incretins are doing. And what we expect out of that is a more productive body composition that helps to really promote like lean mass preservation and muscle and really just target the fat.
Is that when you talk about the side effects, like if an incretin-based approach is, I think the ones that grab the most headlines that are kind of, public or household knowledge around those therapies are like loss of lean muscle mass and also loss of bone density, I've read. And I don't know, how validated that is or what the scientific evidence is. But are those kind of the side effects that you're talking about that you're looking to do an end around?
Yeah, like the data right now points to about when you're seeing the GLP-1s show weight loss, you're seeing almost 40% loss of weight associated with lean mass loss of that overall loss. So naturally, if you are losing fat, you're also losing muscle. So it's just the degree of muscle loss which is the concern. And what we are trying to really promote is can you get a better preservation of lean mass and a better body composition at the end. So this approach that we're taking through targeting peripheral CB1 is that you're able to kind of not only convert this fat into energy, you're able to also reintroduce leptin. Leptin resistance is really induced by a high-fat diet, and so you're really helping to restore the effectiveness of leptin, and it's helping promote reducing food intake and promoting weight loss. You're also helping to reestablish insulin sensitivity. So those are all combined kind of metabolic pathways that are working in conjunction with this organ-specific CB1 inhibition that we're targeting.